On my deathbed, I lay in the hospital bed and reflected on my life. I had thought that although my life was not perfect, it could be considered fulfilling. I spent half of my life with the person I loved, had a harmonious family, and a smooth career. However, a live broadcast shattered my beautiful dream. Under the camera, my husband embraced his first love affectionately and told the story of their regretful love that spanned several decades. Unaware netizens praised them as a match made in heaven. And my half a lifetime of being together and understanding each other completely turned into a joke. If time could be turned back, this time I choose to live for myself. When I was dying in the hospital bed, I was only 53 years old. Pancreatic cancer had tormented me, leaving me in low spirits and pale. I didn't want to face Ethan in such a haggard state, so I asked him not to visit me. Ethan let out a sigh. Surprisingly, he really only came to see me a few times. I comforted myself that he was respecting my wishes. Later, I found out that he really didn't want to see me. That day was a rare sunny day. After the nurse finished the rounds, she told the students who came to visit me that they could accompany me to go outside and bask in the sun. Looking at the bright sunlight outside the window, I wondered if Ethan would come today. I had figured it out. Now that my days were numbered, there weren't many chances for me to see him. After more than 20 years of marriage, how could he mind my haggard appearance? When he came, I would tell him that he had to come to see me every day from then on. After a lifetime of business, perhaps this last period of my life would become one of my few beautiful memories. My anticipation collapsed when I saw Scarlett and Ethan appearing together in the live broadcast camera. She was Ethan's first love, the person in the photos he treasured. I had also pieced together bits and pieces of their story from the words of my relatives and friends. Under the spotlight, she was as beautiful and elegant as ever. There were not many traces of time on her face, which was over 50 years old. In contrast, I, who had been tortured by the illness for more than half a year, looked really disfigured. Scarlett looked at Ethan tenderly and delivered her acceptance speech. It is love that gives this painting its true meaning. There was a round of applause from the audience, and countless people were moved by their separation and reunion. The next day, Scarlett appeared in my ward. She gently took my thin and withered hand, expressing her sympathy and gratitude. Ethan, who was standing behind her, spoke somewhat awkwardly. Arya, Scarlett said she wanted to come and see you. He had a beige coat draped over his arm and was holding a woman's handbag in his left hand. Standing next to the still charming Scarlett, they looked indescribably intimate and natural. Ethan was 3 years older than me. He had been an elegant and aloof scholar for most of his life and was always distant when dealing with people. Now, he looked deeply in love with Scarlett. My eyes stung, and my heart was filled with sadness. I couldn't help but ask myself sarcastically if it was really worth spending my whole life chasing after him. In the 28 years of our marriage, Ethan had never been so intimate with me. Although we lived and worked under the same roof, we always walked separately when we were together. Most of the time, there was at least the distance of one person between us. And he never took the initiative to get close to me. I had always thought that he didn't like to be in close contact with people. It turned out that he just didn't want to get close to me. Ethan took a step forward, his eyes evasive. Arya, I want to divorce you. My mind went blank for a moment. And the heart that had been hanging in the air suddenly dropped into the abyss, with blood splattering everywhere. Overwhelmed with grief and indignation, I couldn't control my emotions. Ethan, I suddenly threw the cup beside me at him. And Ethan instinctively turned around to protect Scarlett. The sharp fragment seemed to suddenly tear apart a mask of more than 20 years of peaceful happiness. How ridiculous my life had been. The intense emotions made it hard for me to breathe. And I struggled to reach out and press the call bell at the head of the bed. Before I completely lost consciousness, I felt the nurses and doctors rushing in. After the emergency treatment, I became even more haggard. The doctor told me not to get overly emotional again. And even after seeing that I had stabilized, Ethan still proposed a divorce. I looked at him calmly, my heart as cold as still water. Perhaps he felt a bit ashamed, so he didn't dare to meet my gaze. But the words he said were still like sharp knives. stabbing at my heart one by one. He said, "Arya, Scarlett is the regret of my whole life. You also know that life is unpredictable. Now that I have the opportunity, I don't want to miss it again. I hope you can achieve us." Seeing that I didn't speak, he continued to pour out his heart on his own. "I haven't forgotten her for a single day in all these years. Since you love me so much, you shouldn't have the heart to let me continue suffering. Right?" Scarlett beside him was moved to tears. And the two of them looked at each other affectionately. In an instant, I felt like the villain who was trying to separate a loving couple. Yvonne's old mother also opened her mouth to persuade me, "Scarlett and you have finally come this far. Don't stand in the way anymore." The loose skin on her face made the old lady look more mean than ever. She had always been dissatisfied that I hadn't given Ethan a child, so she took this opportunity to deliberately make me feel bad. During my hospitalization, many students came to visit me. The one who came the most was Chloe, the last doctoral student I had before I got sick. Chloe was different from other students. She was not only my student but also a child that Ethan and I had sponsored for many years. Since Ethan and I didn't have our own children, we had always treated her like a daughter and even decided to leave all our inheritance to her in the future. But now, the person I had treated with all my heart and soul as my daughter was frowning and accusing me. "Why can't you achieve Ethan's father and Scarlett? This is his only wish for the rest of his life. Anyway, having fulfilled my desire." You. She didn't finish. But I understood. Anyway, I was going to die. And I should be magnanimous and let them be together. It was really ridiculous. The legal wife who had accompanied him for most of his life had become a stumbling block to his so-called true love. The legitimate marriage had turned out to be me occupying someone else's place. Ethan was really good at twisting the truth. I closed my eyes warily, not wanting to see them anymore. Chloe was still chattering on. I heard that they send handwritten letters to each other every year. How romantic. Scarlett painted a painting for Ethan's father before she went abroad many years ago. This painting recently won an award. And everyone says that their fate is destined by heaven. Moreover, considering Ethan's father's current reputation and status, you two are no longer a good match. Every word pierced my heart. I suddenly opened my eyes angrily. Chloe was startled by my gaze but still murmured softly, "That's the truth." I opened my mouth but couldn't say a word. I just felt a rush of blood to my head, and then I blacked out and fainted. For when I woke up again, I heard suppressed sobbing. I turned my head irritably. But I was stunned when I saw clearly who it was. It was my mother. When she saw me wake up, she quickly wiped away her tears, forced a smile, and asked me with great pity, "Arya, does it hurt a lot?" My mother's warm palm gently stroked my hair. And suddenly I couldn't control my tears. Then I burst into tears. There was so much pain in her eyes. And she bent down and gently hugged me. Although all this seemed as unreal as a dream, I had indeed returned to the year when I was 26 years old. This year was the second year of my marriage to Ethan. I had an accidental miscarriage and just lost the baby. My mother rushed over from my hometown to take care of me. Knowing that I had been afraid of pain since I was a child, when she saw so much blood, she was so heartbroken that she shed tears. Because of his self-blame and guilt, Ethan for the first time put aside his pride and patiently accompanied me and comforted me. He who had never touched the spring water of the kitchen clumsily began to learn how to cook and take care of me, which won my forgiveness and pity. Soon, without a little sorry, we made up. The miscarriage was really an accident. At that time, I didn't know I was pregnant. I worked day and night on experiments and writing materials, ignoring the changes in my body. I only wanted to achieve more results and publish more papers so that Ethan could be promoted to professor as soon as possible. And there was also a quarrel between me and Ethan. The cause was that I wanted to take on a research project from my senior brother's company. This project indeed had great commercial value, and the project funds were very sufficient. Ethan thought I was too utilitarian, too concerned about money, and full of a merchant's atmosphere. A scientific researcher shouldn't be like that. For the first time, I felt disheartened and very aggrieved. Since I couldn't argue with him, I vented all my emotions on doing experiments. As a result, I was so overworked that I fainted in the laboratory in the middle of the night and was only discovered by the students in the morning. It was said that there was a pool of blood on the ground. 5 Ethan and I taught in the same college. At that time, he was the youngest doctor in the college. Because of his excellent resume and good looks, he was very popular. Every class was full, and the school arranged classes for him every semester. As a master's student who stayed at the school to teach, at first, I served as his teaching assistant and was responsible for the communication between him and the students. Many female students tried to get close to me because they wanted to know more about him. I was in a difficult situation, caught in the middle. Because at that time, I also had a crush on the young and promising, reserved and cold Ethan. I tried my best to help him at work. When he was busy with scientific research, I helped him prepare the teaching PPTs and took the initiative to be responsible for the students' assessments. Later, I even directly taught his classes for him. After that, I was invited to join his research group. At that time, he didn't have the qualifications to recruit postgraduate students yet, so I tried my best to help him recruit undergraduate students to do the research projects. The experimental conditions of the newly established research group were not good. We didn't have the funds to buy advanced equipment, so we often had to spend more time working day and night. Sometimes, in order to achieve results, we had to borrow the equipment from other laboratories. Ethan was too shy to ask for help. I didn't want to see him in a difficult situation, so I had to swallow my pride and ask others for help everywhere. And thus I owed a lot of favors. Those days were very difficult, but we could find joy in hardship and joked that this was the scientific research spirit. During the days of sharing we Al and woe, Ethan and I got closer and closer. Until one day, I accidentally revealed my feelings to him while a bit drunk. The night wind was gentle, and Ethan's handsome eyebrows and eyes were not very clear under the light. Ethan was stunned for a long time. So long that I was almost sober and was about to run away in a hurry. Suddenly, he let out a low laugh, reached out and ruffled my hair, and his eyes were filled with a smile. I was intoxicated by that moment of tenderness for more than 20 years. 6 in the evening. Ethan brought a pot of chicken soup to the ward. After more than 20 years. When I saw his well-defined face again, I couldn't help but sigh that God really favored him. At 29 years old, Ethan was gentle and elegant, often wearing a distant smile on his face and being polite to everyone. But when he put away his smile, he immediately became unapproachable. The students privately described him as a flower on a high mountain. And they joked that I was the warrior who picked the flower, and said that I vividly demonstrated what the early bird catches the worm meant. In the past, I also thought I was brave. Now that I think about it, I was just trying to catch the moon in the water. That moon never belonged to me. Moreover, I was blind. Such a person didn't deserve to be my moon at all. I looked at Ethan coldly as he carefully filled a bowl of soup and held it up to feed me. Arya, try it. This is the first time I've made soup. It might not taste good. I sneered, if it doesn't taste good, don't make me drink it. It wasn't just not good. It was almost unbearable. Fishy, having fulfilled Leidenschaft. Oily. And extremely salty. In my previous life, I endured and drank a bowl. And then I vomited all over the place after he left. The nurse saw it and sighed, telling me to pay attention to my diet. Ethan's face turned red all of a sudden. And the smile on his face disappeared. He clenched his hands nervously and then lowered his head with a wronged expression. I'm sorry. It's my fault that you've suffered so much. Ethan raised his head again and held my hand to apologize sincerely. I was taken aback for a moment. But there was no ripple in my heart. Perhaps his apology was sincere. But that was all. Because he wouldn't make any real changes. Even if he was full of apologies, he would still do things that hurt me. I must have been out of my mind before to think he was sincere and to fantasize that he would change one day. I was so stupid and confident. Seeing that I didn't respond, Ethan's face looked a bit unpleasant. My mother was afraid that the situation would be too embarrassing. So she came out to smooth things over and told him to go and be busy and come back tomorrow. After he left, my mother sighed and then put away the chicken soup. I had never liked chicken soup since I was a child. My mother was sighing that my husband Ethan and didn't even know this. Arya. Mom. I want to divorce Ethan. 7. My mother's eyes turned red. She knew how much I liked Ethan. But she also knew that once I said something, I would do it. Okay. Our Arya must have been wronged. I leaned into her arms with tears streaming down my face. My mother was no longer young. But her embrace would always be my only support. The grievances of my past and present lives welled up all at once. And my tears were about to burst forth again. In these 2 days, it seemed as if I had shed all the tears of my 2 lifetimes. For my betrayed heart and the 30 years of my life that were like a joke. Scarlett was Ethan's first love that he couldn't have when he was young. And it was a regret that he couldn't let go of in his whole life. Even though I took care of him meticulously for nearly 30 years. I still couldn't warm his heart. Scarlett only needed to stand there too easily when his sincere love. Even when I was seriously ill in bed. He didn't want to wait for me to die. As soon as Scarlett turned back. He couldn't wait to draw a clear line with me so that he could spend the rest of his life with his beloved. How could I not be resentful? Since they loved each other so much. Why did they involve me? And by what right did they gain both fame and fortune and fly away together? Stepping on my flesh and blood? Whoever wants this marriage woven with deception and lies can have it. I don't care about it anymore. The anger turned into a surging hatred, making me not want to endure it for a single moment. I brought up the divorce with Ethan on the day I was discharged from the hospital. His face instantly turned cold. His brows furrowed. And his tone was a bit impatient. Arya. Don't joke about this. His extremely confident tone made my heart ache. I handed him the signed divorce agreement. A look of anger flashed across his face. And then he softened his tone. I won't agree to the divorce. During my hospitalization, I asked my friend Olivia, who studied law, to draw up an agreement for me. Olivia sighed and said that I had finally come to my senses. She always felt that I had become visibly haggard in the past 2 years. But seeing that I seemed to enjoy it, she didn't want to persuade me too much. The only common property between Ethan and me was a house and a car. Both of us were virtually penniless when we got married, so there wasn't much that was really worth dividing. However, I also knew that the hope of getting a divorce was slim. And Ethan was very likely to not agree. It wasn't that he really had much affection for me. It was just that now he needed me. Needed me as a thoughtful and capable assistant in both life and work. Moreover, his first love, Scarlett, had just been married for 2 years. Moved abroad. And was living a happy life. They couldn't be reunited for the time being. So how could they let me go? I wanted to bet that he wouldn't allow me to trample on his pride like this. But unfortunately, I didn't win the bet. Then I had to find another way. 9. Seeing that I put away the agreement, Ethan heaved a sigh of relief. Arya. Calm down. We will still have children in the future. I remained silent. Ethan then put on a helpless expression. Just calm down by yourself. I'll go and live in the school for a couple of days. It was the same old trick again. He was always unwilling to solve the problem. Always putting himself outside the situation and leaving me shouting hoarsely on my own. He was like this every time we had a disagreement in my previous life. He asked me to calm down and figure things out by myself. It was as if everything was my fault. I sneered in my heart. I had thought it through clearly. Even if I couldn't get a divorce immediately, he wouldn't be able to enjoy my devotion anymore. After taking my leave, I went back to the school and finalized the research topic with the students. Ethan was going to attend an academic conference abroad. That was just as well. So that I wouldn't have to be annoyed by seeing him. It took me a week to sort out the experimental data. After writing the thesis, I directly submitted it. Because of the sufficient innovative points and complete data, the editor quickly gave feedback. After making two minor revisions, it was directly accepted. When Ethan came back, the matter was already a foregone conclusion. This time, I didn't include his name. I gave the first author position to the student who was about to graduate, so that she could be recommended for postgraduate study without taking the entrance exam. I myself was listed as the corresponding author. This research topic took a year and was originally going to be an important boost for Ethan to be promoted to the professorship. Now I didn't want to give it to him. Clearly, having fulfilled my From the application to the implementation. It was me who led the students to do it. And he just put his name on it. I believed that a person as aloof and indifferent as he was wouldn't fight for it. Ethan's face looked unpleasant. But he didn't say anything. I knew that he actually cared a lot. But it was just that he was used to getting these things without having to ask for them. Now he was too embarrassed to ask for them actively. And besides, I wouldn't give them to him even if he did. As expected, he wasn't promoted. Ethan's face was tense. He had a cold expression for several days in a row and even resorted to his old trick of moving to live in the school. I sneered. This was just the beginning. Now he was already an associate professor, and had also recruited his first batch of postgraduate students. However, usually, I was the one who took care of his students. And I was also their second supervisor. Although I had made up my mind not to work for Ethan anymore, I still had to be responsible for these students. After all, they were recruited by me. I would leave Ethan's research group after ensuring that they could graduate. At the same time, I recommended another reliable teacher in the same research direction to my senior brother for cooperation. I couldn't let Ethan have it easy. That teacher had a bit of a feud with Ethan and deliberately went to him to speak in a sarcastic manner. Ethan lived in the school for half a month. And I didn't show any sign of giving in. It seemed that he finally realized that I wouldn't back down this time. So he moved back by himself. I didn't even raise my head and just finished my dinner on my own. When I stood up, Ethan suddenly held down my hand that was picking up the dishes and bowls. Leaned in and stared at me. Arya, you're still angry. I didn't want to pay attention to him. But I couldn't break free from his grip. I could only listen to him continue. I'm not used to this cold war between us. I'll apologize to you. Okay? Stop making a fuss. His gentle tone was as if he was tolerating a mischievous wife, but all I wanted to do was vomit when I heard it. So I deliberately made a gagging gesture. And Ethan's face immediately turned cold as he let go of my hand. I smiled falsely. Sorry. I really couldn't help it. Ethan held back his anger. Arya, what on earth do you want me to do? Of course. It ended in a bad mood. Ethan firmly believed that I was just blaming him because we lost the baby. And it would be okay once I figured it out. I ignored him and was calculating the time in my heart. I took the time to take my mother for a comprehensive physical examination. The prerequisite for not repeating the same mistakes was to live well. Fortunately, heading fulfilledly. Neither of us had any serious health problems for now. But I still learned a lot of knowledge about preventing pancreatic cancer. Started to adjust my work and rest schedule. And tried to find time to exercise. The irregular work and rest schedule was a bad habit I developed during my postgraduate study. I didn't expect it to get even worse after I started working. It was very likely that I got pancreatic cancer in my previous life because of this. 11 At the same time as in my previous life, Ethan brought Chloe back. He claimed that she was the child of a distant relative, whose parents had unfortunately passed away. And the elderly grandparents couldn't afford to raise her. Arya, this child is so pitiful. I want her to live with us. Chloe, petty fulfilled layered sigh. Who was 4 years old. Was thin and small. With yellowish hair and dark skin. Looking malnourished and extremely pitiful. You surely can't bear to see her all alone and helpless. Right? Ethan held my hand and even started to morally blackmail me. It was so ridiculous. He brought the child home for me to take care of just because he thought she was pitiful. He was really good at being generous with other people's efforts. In my previous life, because I had just lost my child and couldn't bear to see a child suffering like this, I would agree to bring her home. Even though I was so busy with work that I didn't have a moment to spare, I would still try my best to squeeze out time to take good care of Chloe. But Chloe's hurtful words were still ringing in my ears. And I didn't want to raise an ungrateful person. I smiled in a half-mocking way, and said, I can bear it. Who knows if this is your illegitimate daughter? Ethan actually looked a bit guilty for a moment. And then he became angry. What are you talking nonsense about? In fact, I knew that Chloe wasn't. She did have biological parents. And they had indeed passed away unfortunately. And she happened to have a slight resemblance to Scarlett in appearance. He regarded Chloe as Scarlett's child. It took me so many days to figure it out. Ethan wasn't really a kind-hearted person at all. It could be seen from his attitude towards his legal wife. How could he feel compassion for a child who had nothing to do with him for no reason? Probably because there were some aspects of Chloe that reminded him of Scarlett. He imagined Chloe as the child of Scarlett and him and used her as an emotional sustenance. Thinking about it this way, it was even more disgusting. 12. I wonder if Chloe knew about this? Thinking back carefully on the details of my previous life. Was Chloe just simply playing the role of a child? Compared to me, she had always been closer to Ethan. I had always regarded her as my own child. So I never thought too much about it. I just thought it was the child's admiration for an excellent father. Chloe's occasional strained remarks were all taken by me as the child's caucasus and joking words. I wasn't without suggesting that we officially adopt Chloe, but she refused. The reason was that she had already received enough love from us and couldn't be too greedy and take the place of my child. At that time, I even thought she was too sensible and felt even more sorry for her. If she really had other feelings for Ethan, then it wouldn't be strange for her to say those words to me at my bedside. It couldn't be ruled out that possibility. Although Ethan was much older than her. In case she hadn't seen much of the world and was bewitched by Ethan's elegant appearance. For her, Scarlett was the unattainable first love and had an unparalleled position in Ethan's heart. She knew that she couldn't compete with her. But I was different. After getting along closely with me for more than 10 years. Chloe probably also sensed that Ethan didn't have any love for me. Perhaps in her heart, I was just a miserable woman who wasn't loved and was always trying to please her husband. And the fact that such a woman had the status of Ethan's wife was enough to make her feel indignant and even jealous. So she could give me a fatal blow without hesitation. What an ungrateful person. She was really Ethan's good daughter. 13. Since I refused to agree to let Chloe move in, Ethan had to send her to a nearby welfare institution. Now he was just an associate professor whose foundation wasn't stable yet. His life wasn't exactly difficult. But it could be considered poor. And he didn't have spare money to raise Chloe. Without me as a free nanny, he couldn't take care of a child at all. While continuing to care about the students' graduation research topics, I privately investigated the news about Scarlett. Scarlett used to be somewhat famous in their school, so it wasn't difficult to find out about her. She and Ethan grew up together as childhood sweethearts. And they went their separate ways after graduating from university. Scarlett, who came from a well-off family, traveled around the world in pursuit of art. Later, having fulfilled les obsèques, after her father passed away, she returned to China and married a rich second generation who fell in love with her at first sight. 2 years ago, Scarlett and her husband moved to Europe, and now she opened a gallery. I had never seen the award-winning painting that Chloe mentioned. I guess that Scarlett wouldn't take it out to show off now. But how could such a good thing be hidden? So I might as well be a good person and publicize their beautiful love story for them. I also had to thank Chloe. Only because of her did I know that Ethan and Scarlett had been in touch all these years. However, Ethan hid the letters very carefully. And I still couldn't find them even after searching all over the house. The decoration style of Scarlett's gallery was as elegant and gorgeous as she was. What I didn't expect was that the painting was actually on display. And it was named Lover. They were really being blatant about playing with others. They clearly chose to start their own families respectively. But what were they pretending for? Acting as if they couldn't let go of each other and had a deep and tragic love? Since they couldn't bear to part with each other, then I might as well fulfill them. Finally, having fulfilled my obsèques, the school holiday came. Seeing that most of the students' research topics had been completed, I heaved a sigh of relief. The college had completed several excellent projects this year. And the dean specifically proposed organizing a tourism and team-building activity for the relevant teachers. Ethan would definitely not participate in such an activity in the past, but this time he agreed, because the destination was France. Since I was young among the teachers, they pushed the task of arranging the itinerary to me. Before the departure, Ethan seemed unable to contain his excitement and behaved badly several times in front of me. He explained it like this: "I'm a bit excited because it's the first time to travel with you." I smiled sarcastically. Sure enough, after 2 days, Ethan started to pretend to be ill. "I'm really sorry. Everyone. You don't have to worry about me. Don't let me spoil the fun." His clumsy acting made me almost unable to hold back my laughter. He couldn't wait to go and see Scarlett. And don't blame me. 14 There were quite a few tourists during the holiday. I pretended to be here for the first time. But I accidentally walked in front of that painting. I stood in front of the painting in shock and didn't say a word. The teachers who followed behind looked embarrassed. Blake stepped forward in confusion and asked, "Do you know the person in this painting?" I slightly turned my head. But my gaze didn't move away from the painting. I said bitterly, "The person in the painting is my husband." Blake opened his eyes wide in surprise. That's right. Blake was Scarlett's husband. From me, having fulfilled my obsession. He heard the name of the person in the painting for the first time. And he had just learned that his wife's so-called dead first love was still alive. I wonder how Ethan would feel if he knew that he was already dead? People are always more tolerant of the dead. After all, what's there to argue about when someone is dead? And to a certain extent, the image of a person who is deeply in love and nostalgic for the dead is also more likely to arouse people's pity. But if one day, they suddenly find out that the so-called deep nostalgia is just a lie, even if the two parties are still secretly in touch, what kind of mood would they be in? I wiped away my tears, and only then did I feel a sense of guilt in my tone. Maybe your wife was just afraid that you would mind. I hope my words won't cause any misunderstanding between you two. Blake's face turned grayish. And he tried hard to force a polite smile. 15 As for what he would do, I didn't care. I staged this scene just because I didn't want him to be kept in the dark and become a stepping stone that's silently sacrificed in the love story of Scarlett and Ethan. Just like I was in my previous life. People like Scarlett and Ethan, who betrayed true feelings, didn't deserve to be happy. When Ethan came back in the evening and saw everyone there, he panicked for a moment. Then he pretended to explain casually. I went out for a walk. Everyone had different expressions. And no one responded. The atmosphere was extremely awkward. Ethan didn't understand why. After that, the trip ended in a hurry. And no one had any objections. Although Ethan noticed that everyone seemed to be especially cold towards him. He didn't know where to start, so he had to hold it in. After returning to school, the news of Ethan's infidelity had spread. Although everyone seemed harmonious on the surface and would comfort me to my face. But who knew what they thought privately? Especially with such gossip. Who could resist chatting about it with others? Soon I received an email from Blake. He and Scarlett had divorced. Ethan was both shocked and angry. "Arya, what did you do?" I slowly took a sip of tea and said in a sarcastic tone. "I just accidentally witnessed a great love story. Why don't you ask Miss Chloe?" Ethan's face turned red. "You're going too far. Since you couldn't get a divorce from me, you actually went to bother her." Bother? He really knew how to distort the truth. Were they only allowed to enjoy others' sincere efforts while having an affair with their old lover secretly? And others weren't allowed to expose the truth? I just couldn't bear to see you lovers separated by the ends of the earth. Of course. I didn't want you people with divided loyalties to continue being happy. You'd better be tied together and stay far away from me. Ethan stared at me with a dark look in his eyes. At this moment, he also knew clearly that everything couldn't be undone. But he still refused to agree to the divorce. I have to say that he's really despicable. The gossip spread too quickly. Someone even anonymously scolded Ethan on the school's official account, and the school authorities tried hard to suppress it. Taking this opportunity, I applied to study abroad as a visiting scholar. 16 The formalities at school were completed quickly. I didn't know if it was out of sympathy for me or to quell the rumors as soon as possible. When Ethan's mother heard the news, she came running from her hometown and pointed at my nose and cursed. "Why are you so restless? Do you have to go abroad and cause trouble day by day?" I looked at her coldly. "Why don't you ask your dear son what he did?" She looked guilty for a moment. Then glared at me again. "Well, you still shouldn't run abroad. Isn't it because you couldn't keep his heart?" My mother stood in front of me to protect me and retorted. The visit abroad went smoothly. Although it was also very hard. But compared to the past when I worked my heart out for Ethan and suffered from his cold violence from time to time, it was much more comfortable. So, feeling sorry for men is really the source of bad luck. After returning to China, I quickly resigned and immediately received an offer from another university. The current competitive environment is not optimistic. The reason why I could get the offer was also due to the internal recommendation of a professor. When I saw Ethan again, he seemed to have become much more haggard. His back, which had always been straight, was slightly bent. He was just in his early 30s. And his condition was even worse than when he was in his 40s in my previous life. It seemed that he didn't have a good year. Well, then I was relieved. 17 in court. Ethan stared at me in silence. This was another purpose of my going abroad. To file for a divorce through litigation. With a long enough separation time and some of the evidence of their infidelity provided by Blake, the court pronounced a divorce. It was only when I received the judgment that I let out a long sigh of relief. I had finally gotten rid of this identity that I hated. For the rest of my life, I wouldn't have anything to do with Ethan anymore. My senior brother made fun of me, back then. You were the sensible one in our research group. How did you go astray later? I sighed and shook my head. To be honest, I never regretted having feelings for someone. I just unfortunately met someone unworthy. My senior sister, who heard this, slapped him. What do you mean by also? Was it going astray to marry me? Of course not. Although my new job was busy, I could always find time to be with my family and friends. Looking back on my previous life of working myself to the bone, I couldn't help but feel a bit sad. People should cherish themselves first before loving others. My senior brother was on a business trip and asked me to accompany my senior sister to the prenatal checkup. We accidentally met Scarlett and Ethan in the hospital. Before, the affair between Scarlett and Ethan had been widely publicized and caused a wave of heated discussion. Scarlett's reputation in the art circle plummeted. And there were a lot of curses under her social media accounts. And Ethan's reputation at school wasn't much better either. Now these lovers had to be together. When Ethan saw me, he was obviously taken aback and opened his mouth as if he wanted to say something. I just ignored him directly. Scarlett looked haggard. And her body was a bit swollen. When she saw me, there was a hint of venom in her eyes. My senior sister rolled her eyes, cursed, sick, and pulled me away quickly. Just as we were about to turn the corner, Ethan suddenly chased after us and said something inexplicable. The child isn't mine, I said mockingly. Then teacher Ethan has quite a niche hobby. Liking to raise other people's children so much. My senior sister couldn't help but burst out laughing. Ethan's face showed a complex expression. 18 after the checkup, my senior sister and I had just reached the corner when a child suddenly rushed up. I quickly stepped in front of my senior sister. The child was knocked to the ground with a dull thud. But before I could bend down to help him up, I heard a scolding voice. Why are you running so carelessly? Hurry up and apologize to them. The thin girl staggered to her feet, lowered her head, and kept saying sorry. As she moved, some purple and blue bruises were faintly visible under her sleeves. I frowned instinctively. But I was stunned the moment she looked up. It was Chloe. At 7 or 8 years old, she didn't look much better than she did a few years ago. Looking at her familiar eyebrows and eyes, I felt nothing in my heart. I heard that she had been adopted, and the person who had just scolded her was probably her adoptive mother. The adoptive mother had a big belly and seemed to be quite far along in her pregnancy. Chloe seemed not to dare to look up, but her eyes kept wandering over the adoptive mother's belly. I felt a chill in my heart. If my senior sister and I hadn't quickened our pace and walked ahead, then she would have run into the adoptive mother. It turned out that her viciousness didn't suddenly appear. It couldn't be extinguished by love. Nor could it be worn away by suffering. At only 7 or 8 years old, she dared to harm a life. After scolding, the adoptive mother walked forward on her own and waved away Chloe's outstretched hand in disgust. Chloe's eyes were filled with tears. And she followed submissively. 19 Ethan was dismissed from school because of academic fraud. There were countless curses all at once. And the previous affair was brought up again. After I went abroad, he continued to recruit students. But he had always been aloof and rarely communicated with the students. With tight funding and a lack of projects, there were a lot of problems when the students graduated. In a hurry, he resorted to fraud. As a supervisor, Ethan also had to bear the responsibility. In addition, he hadn't achieved much in recent years. I guess the school took this opportunity to optimize the staff and get rid of him. I heard that Ethan's mother made a big scene at the school and fell ill after going back. When Scarlett went to see her, she was scolded and beaten out, and she almost had a miscarriage. My senior sister rejoiced. Fortunately, you got a divorce. Otherwise, if you were involved with such a jerk, it would be all over. In my previous life, with my efforts and supervision, every student of Ethan's graduated smoothly, and many of them became outstanding figures in the industry. The efforts of me and generations of students made Ethan famous, with numerous achievements and honors. Now, just 2 years later, he had problems. He was even worse than I had imagined. My senior brother said that he accidentally ran into Ethan going for an interview at their company. The HR frowned when looking at the resume and asked Ethan a few questions that made him blush and flee in a hurry. Having stayed in the ivory tower for too long, he couldn't adapt to the work outside anymore. With the pressure of his mother's medical expenses, Ethan was in a mess. His hair turned white before he was 40. And I had just received the letter of appointment as a professor. My salary and benefits had increased a lot, and I also had my own laboratory and team. Last month, I bought a new house for my mother, and recently we've been discussing the decoration style. After I didn't have to pave the way for Ethan anymore, I realized that I was actually very excellent. Sometimes, when people are betrayed, they can't help but doubt themselves, and even feel unwilling. My desperate pursuit in my previous life might also have been out of unwillingness. In fact, there's no need to be tangled about this at all. The pursuit of being loved might be human nature, but being loved shouldn't be the criterion for evaluating a person. Self-love is the only correct answer. My career is booming, and Ethan has faded out of my world. 20 after disappearing for a long time, Ethan suddenly asked to meet me. I directly refused and blocked him. Unexpectedly, he waited at the school gate. In the coffee shop, Ethan stared at me for a long time. Lost in thought, I waited for a long time. But he didn't say anything. I became a bit impatient. He suddenly said, "Arya, you're doing really well now." There was a round of applause from the audience, and countless people were moved by their separation and reunion. I was stunned when I met his weathered gaze. I was sure that the person in front of me was Ethan at the age of 56. In an instant, anger and hatred welled up in my heart, and then gradually subsided. The gray-haired Ethan gradually overlapped with the one in my previous life. He said in a hoarse voice, trembling, "Arya, I'm sorry." I saw a hint of expectation in his cloudy eyes. What was he expecting? To be forgiven by me at the age of 30? But Ethan, no matter which me it is, I won't forgive you. In this life, I stopped my losses in time. Not because you had a change of heart. If I hadn't discovered your hypocritical true face, I would have been deceived to the end, just like in my previous life. I deserve an apology. But it doesn't mean I'll forgive you. The dark past should be thrown far away. I've already started my new life. But it's true that Ethan at the age of 56 should know how dazzling my life belonging to myself is. 21 at the age of 56. I was invited to participate in an interview program as a scientist with outstanding contributions to scientific research. During the question and answer session, the interviewing reporter looked hesitant as he looked at the questions in his hand. "I heard that your previous husband was also a scientific researcher in the relevant field. Did he help you on your scientific research path?" Instead of answering, I asked him back, "If the person you were interviewing today was my ex-husband or another male scientist, would you ask such a question?" The reporter fell silent. They always refused to believe in the power of women, but they could easily believe in the achievements of men in any field. When an excellent woman appears in the public eye, they always seem to be looking for the role that men played in it, even if it's just as spiritual support. In the same situation, in the stories of excellent men, few people would pay attention to the presence of women. I hope that in the future, when every outstanding woman achieves something, what she gets first isn't doubt, but praise. How many times can a person's life be taken away? My life has been taken away 3 times. My birth, a national college entrance examination, and my marriage were all decisions made by my parents for my life. Since I was born, my mother has disliked me. After the National College entrance examination, she sold me to a lame man in the countryside. My elder sister received all the preferential treatment. She went to university in my place and married a man who loved her. I was chained up with an iron chain all my life and lived like a dog in a dark and sunless house. The day I was rescued turned out to be the day of my destruction. In the end, I died on a snowy winter night. My parents were right behind me. I wasn't willing to die like that. When I opened my eyes again, I went back to the day when my mother was helping me pack my luggage. When I died on a snowy night, I was 28 years old that year. You still have the nerve to come back. You've been defiled by others. You have no shame. But we do. My mother pushed me out of the door with great force. With a bang, the door was shut forcefully again. This door cut off all my hopes. It also cut off my life. That night, I died right outside the door of my home. The thick layer of snow covered my whole body. It was as if it was trying to wash away the filth of my whole life. I was frozen to death. I was only wearing a thin piece of clothing made from a sack. What are you in a daze for? Suddenly, I was pushed hard from behind. And I immediately fell to the ground. Before I could figure out what was going on, I heard a stream of curses. Do you think it's great to be admitted to Harvard? Even if you get 0 points in the exam, I'm still your mother. I turned my head and finally saw clearly the woman standing beside me who was scolding me as if I was good for nothing. She was my biological mother, Vivian. Because giving birth to me caused her so much pain, she has hated me for a lifetime. But life is really unfair. My twin sister, who also caused her pain, has been favored by her for a lifetime. What? Do you want money? Sitting on the ground, throwing a tantrum, playing tricks on me. Look at how young you are. What will you be like in the future? Actually, I'm still in a daze now. I clearly had already died. When I was freezing to death, the warmth that I felt for the first time seemed to still be lingering at my fingertips. I touched my arm and my face. I was really warm. I wasn't suffering from hypothermia. When I fell just now, I scraped my knee. The pain made me realize that I had come back. I had returned to 10 years ago. When I was 18 years old, I had just been admitted to Harvard. This was my second life. I stood up from the ground. I looked around. It was my bedroom. Only my bedroom could be this shabby. There was a bed, a simple wardrobe, a rickety old desk, and half of the glass window was even pasted with paper. It was when my elder sister hit me in middle school that she threw her thick-soled shoes at the glass. My elder sister told my mother on me. I didn't do it on purpose. It was Ava who provoked me. She broke the glass. But I was severely beaten by my mother. She whipped me with the sole of her shoe. I'm telling you. Don't even think about me spending a single cent on you. You're a natural debt collector. I pasted layer after layer of hemp paper. But it still couldn't keep out the cold wind in winter and the sweltering heat in summer. I got frostbite in winter and heat rashes in summer. In my elder sister's room, there was an electric heater in winter and an air cooler in summer. I finally grew up with great difficulty, thinking that I finally had a chance to escape from this purgatory. I was admitted to university. But my mother took everything away from me again. It was all for my elder sister. The first time was my birth. The second time was my National College entrance examination. I picked up my phone and sent a message to my teacher. Are you really sure about this? My teacher thought I was in the rebellious period of my youth. But she respected my decision. All right. I've made an appointment for you at the police station. Come over with your ID card and household register. My ID card and household register were in my suitcase. I took them out and hid them close to my body. I was admitted to Harvard through my own efforts. I thought I could finally have a life of my own. But everything that happened in my previous life, it was enough to show that everything was just my fantasy. I cried all my tears dry in my previous life. I clenched my fists tightly. This time, I want to give myself a new life. A life that belongs to me. And what I need most now is money. There was a half-used suitcase thrown on the ground. And it was filled with my old clothes. These were all the things I was going to take when I went to report to Harvard. My mother wouldn't give me a single cent. Let alone the tuition fees. What are you still standing there for? Hurry up and pack your things. We'll take the bus tonight and leave. My mother thought I was packing too slowly. Last time I got on that bus, I thought it was taking me to school, but it turned towards the countryside instead. I tried to get off the bus halfway, but my mother knocked me out. When I woke up again, I was being chained up like a dog in a small room. There wasn't a single window in that room. Later, I dug out a small hole with my hands. With my hands that were all bloody from digging, I wrote a character on the wall. Light. 6. I took a deep breath. I didn't have time to be sad, and I didn't have any tears left to shed. I knew how to get the money. I simply packed my luggage and then went to my elder sister Emma's room and had a look around. She must think that she can go to university in my place now and is probably happily playing outside. Her room smelled fragrant and was filled with sunlight. There was a carpet on the floor, and there was a huge wardrobe on one wall. She had an endless supply of clothes. There was a row of her various small bags hanging on the wall, and there was a large shoe cabinet on the floor, with dozens of pairs of beautiful shoes inside, most of which were new. My room was just separated from hers by a wall. It was the smallest room in the house and always had a musty smell. I found a bank book in her drawer with 20 yuan in it. I knew the password was the last 6 digits of her birthday. Emma had savings, pocket money, a new mobile phone, and everything she wanted. I only managed to dig out 16 yuan and to jowie for myself. This was the money I saved bit by bit. After school, I would go and pick up plastic bottles to sell for money. I didn't have any pocket money, because I didn't deserve it. My mother. No, she wasn't my mother anymore. In my previous life, when she destroyed my life time and time again, she wasn't my mother anymore. When the teacher at school called to urge me for the tuition fees, Vivian would point at my nose and scold me. You ungrateful little beast. Does the family lack food or drink for you? How dare you ask for money? If she was in a bad mood, I would be severely beaten. She would use anything she could find to hit me. The sole of a shoe, a wine bottle, a stick, whatever loci, and even leftover food, pots, pans, and bowls. As long as it could be used to hit me, she never showed any mercy. At this time, my elder sister would add fuel to the fire. My father would hide in the kitchen and smoke. I didn't have a father either. Leo. He was an accomplice. I was no longer their daughter. My teacher also replied to my message and asked me a few questions. She helped me fill out the forms at the police station. 7. I sneaked out of the house and immediately went to the ATM to withdraw the money. I wrapped the 20 yuan into thin bundles with rubber bands and wrapped them around my belly in a circle. After I put my clothes down, it couldn't be seen at all. After everything was done, as soon as I came out of the bank, I ran into Leo coming back with some cooked food and several buckets of instant noodles. He pulled me back home, and I could only send a message to tell the teacher to wait for a while. Before we reached the upstairs, we heard Vivian shouting, "Where's Ava? Where the hell did she go?" Her voice pierced through the whole building. But Leo seemed not to have heard it and quickly walked upstairs. "Here she is. She was sneaking around downstairs. Where the hell did you go?" As soon as Vivian saw me, she reached out to pull my clothes to check. I quickly dodged. At this moment, Leo suddenly turned around and pushed me towards Vivian, scolding me together. "What's wrong with you? You don't stay at home properly and just know how to make your mother angry." This shows that he also knew that I was going to be given as a wife to the lame man. Oh, it was selling me. He was also a beneficiary. He was afraid that I would run away. It's not easy to raise you so big. Be obedient. I hated them so much. The hatred made my body tremble. They were selfish, biased, and had no family affection. Even a fierce tiger doesn't eat its cubs, and an old cow licks its calf. But what about them? They were not even human. I won't show any mercy. 8. Have you packed your things? I'll send you off tonight. Vivian spoke to me in a commanding tone. I nodded and lowered my head to eat the instant noodles. And I stuffed the other 2 packs of instant noodles into my suitcase. Leo bought me instant noodles and cooked food to reward me for being admitted to university. But the cooked food had just been hidden by Vivian. On the day my national college entrance examination results came out, the two of them were very happy and secretly took my elder sister to a hotel to celebrate. The three of them and their family had a seafood feast that cost 2,000 yuan. My elder sister brought back the remaining seafood rice for me, and put the lunchbox on my desk with a smile. Eva. See how nice I am to you. I even brought you food. When I opened the lunchbox and saw less than half a box of fried rice, I burst into tears at that time. In this life, I won't shed a single tear for them. I immediately stood up. I'm going to report to school. The teacher asked me to go there. She probably wants to give me some instructions about my studies. Vivian looked at the sky outside. Come back early. Oh, leave your ID card behind. She was afraid that I would run away. I took out my ID card and put it on the table. She also wanted to leave this for Emma. When I went downstairs, I ran into Emma. She grabbed me. Eva, you're going to have a good life in the future. Remember my kindness to you. Looking at her happy back as she went upstairs. It turned out that she also knew that I was going to be sold. I quickly ran to the police station and found my head teacher. Teacher, I want to change my name too. I looked up and saw the national emblem hanging in the service hall. My name is Ella. Why are you even changing your surname? The staff member muttered. My teacher knew my situation. She just nodded at me. You're doing the right thing. Just be yourself. My eyes were wet. I'll report your admission notice as lost. Your new ID card is with me. And there are some other materials. I'll keep them for you. I'll wait for you to come and get them. I nodded and pulled the teacher into the women's restroom. I took down the 20,000 yuan that was wrapped around my belly in bundles. Teacher, this is the money for my school. Please keep it for me. My teacher's eyes were slightly red. And she silently took the money. I'll tell the school for you. I'll collect the scholarship on your behalf. But the scholarship issued by the city. It had already been taken away by Vivian. On the day my admission notice came out, she took away my admission notice and the scholarship sent by the city. At that time, I was locked in the room, and Emma collected the scholarship and took the photo on my behalf. When we were parting, the teacher hugged me reluctantly. Ella, no matter what happens, you must contact me. My teacher is very kind. She is very good, but there are some things that I have to do with my own hands. When I got home, I saw that the ID card on the table was still there. I immediately replaced mine with Ava's. The one on the table was Emma's. The three of them were in Emma's room. They were discussing how to spend the money that the city gave me. And how to sell me without me finding out. Knock her out. It's too much trouble otherwise. It's better to drug her. I listened outside the door for a while. Then recorded a short part and went back to my room. I sent a message to someone. This was the third message I sent to him today. Mr. Ryan. There is a freight truck going to Zixine County tonight. The license plate number is XXX. Following this truck, you can find clues about your sister. Then I turned off my phone and hid it close to my belly. I took out an identical phone from the drawer. What are you doing? Emma brought a glass of cola and put it on my desk. I just bought this. You usually like studying and rarely drink this. Right? She stared at me closely. Obviously extremely nervous. Vivian walked in, picked up the glass, and poured it into my mouth. Why don't you drink such a good thing? What are you hesitating for? Cough. I was forced to drink several mouthfuls. And then I took the opportunity to cough with my head down and spit out most of it. There was a strange smell in this cola. It should be the sleeping pills. After it was completely dark, when Vivian heard the honking of a car downstairs, she held me up and led me outside. She also fished out the phone from my belly. Pick up that shabby suitcase of hers. Unlike in my previous life, I was knocked unconscious in the car this time. Now, in a dazed state, I was placed in the back row of the large truck. Vivian didn't follow me either. After the three of them in the family watched the large truck disappear, they all jumped up happily. Before long, Emma would take my name and go to university. She might even get to know the campus heartthrob and perhaps become a wealthy wife. 11 Just as the car drove out of the small city where I lived, I slowly sat up from the back seat. You're awake? The driver was calm and composed. He wasn't scared by my regaining consciousness. Presumably, since he had been doing this for a long time and had never had any trouble. He wasn't afraid of anything. He could see me through the rearview mirror. And my expression. Don't even think about running away. In my previous life, I had begged him and even kowtowed to him. But it didn't arouse the slightest bit of his sympathy. What tricks are you trying to play? The driver had used this truck to transport countless girls to their village. He knew what words could scare naive girls like me. I took out a piece of candy from my belly and quietly put it in my mouth. I was actually very nervous. In my previous life, at this time, after I was knocked unconscious by Vivian, the driver had also taken the opportunity to take advantage of me a lot. Now I didn't want that to happen again. So I suddenly lay down on the seat and started retching. Ugh. 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 Damn it. What the hell are you doing? The driver stopped the truck by the side of the road. Then, Lena. When he found that I hadn't actually vomited in the car but was just dry heaving, he started driving again. During these short 2 minutes, I kept looking outside. I was waiting for that person. I looked outside through the window, and there was only the black sky. I became even more nervous. Was my plan going to fail? Then what was the meaning of my rebirth? I had to wait for him. 12. I watched the trees that were constantly receding backwards. My heart sank little by little. I reached out and pushed the door again. But it didn't budge at all. I continued to look out of the window through the glass. I could only see my own helpless face in the glass. As I was looking, suddenly I saw a person. He had his hands in his pockets and was standing alone by the roadside. He looked at me coldly. His eyes were very indifferent. I looked at him anxiously and slapped the glass twice. As a result, I only saw his figure getting farther and farther away. What are you doing? The driver looked at me warily through the rearview mirror and stepped on the accelerator even harder. It was him. The person I was looking for. Leon. 13. According to the memories of my previous life, I sent him 3 consecutive messages. From the time I was reborn until I was sent to the car, I only had a little over half a day. And I couldn't do much. I remembered that on the day I was rescued, he left his phone number with me. When you need help, remember to contact me. This was the warmest words I had heard in my previous life. However, I had been locked up for a full 10 years, and had almost lost my ability to speak. I rejected everything. The concern of others. The clothes and shoes that were sent. And the subsidies. When Ryan sent me to the door of my home, he left his phone number with me because he was worried. At that time, Vivian pretended to cry loudly and hugged me excitedly. Leo took the things that others had given me from Ryan's hands. And the money. I was barefoot and wearing a piece of clothing made from a sack. As soon as everyone left, I was immediately beaten out of the house by Vivian. You're such an embarrassment. Why didn't you just die outside? 14. In my previous life, I didn't say another word until I died. I let the murderer who had harmed me escape the net of justice. My elder sister, who had married into a wealthy family, walked past me, wearing red leather boots and arm in arm with her husband. I was frozen stiff. And my body was covered by the snow. When my last bit of consciousness remained, I heard my elder sister happily shouting, "Mom, Mom, Dad, I'm back." Vivian was so happy that she couldn't close her mouth. Oh, our family's highly educated daughter has finally come back. That winter was very cold. There was an extremely rare early winter blizzard that occurred once in 100 years. It was said that it was a sign of the approaching of a small ice age. 15. Although Ryan had helped me and shown me a bit of kindness in my previous life, that was because I had helped him find his sister. We were brought to that village on the same day. Lily and I were respectively sent to different households. And these 2 households happened to be neighbors. There was just a wall between Lily and me. We got to know each other gradually through the crack in the wall. She always firmly believed that her brother would come to find her. Now Ryan didn't know me. I left messages and marked the places I passed by. As long as he found me, he could find his sister. Unfortunately, fulfilledly, Ryan didn't believe me. He just stood by the roadside and watched me calling out silently. I slapped the car window again. He just kept looking. with that indifferent expression. Just like in my previous life. When he came looking for his sister, I took him to the pigsty. That was where Lily was buried. In my previous life. He came too late. 16. What are you slapping for? The driver didn't care about my actions at all. He was even humming a tune. I put my hand on my waist, where I had hidden the things I had prepared. I couldn't act yet. I still had to wait. I wanted to take revenge on everyone. I could only wait. The large truck wobbled and finally arrived at the place that had once ruined my life. Along the way, having fulfilled my obsession, I looked back many times. But I didn't see a single trace of anyone. The night seemed to be about to swallow me up. Just when I was extremely anxious, that nightmarish place arrived. I was pulled out of the car. My luggage belonged to the driver. He threw me out of the car. I was immediately taken in by a man. My husband in my previous life. The lame man, who was 55 years old. I was 18 years old now. He sized me up for a while and nodded in satisfaction. At this moment, another car also drove into the village. It stopped at the door of the neighbor's house. There was a sound of chains rattling. Lily was pulled out of the car with chains on her. It was obvious that she had been beaten. Blood was still seeping from the corners of her mouth and her nose. But when she saw me, she tossed her hair and smiled at me. This beautiful smile sustained me for 10 years in my previous life. 17 in my previous life. I was filled with fear and was extremely numb to everything. This time, besides taking revenge, the reason I insisted on coming back was to save Lily. Even if her brother didn't come, I still had to save her out of here. I couldn't let her die in the prime of her life. She was even 1 year younger than me. 18. Hurry up. If you're not obedient, be careful, I'll beat you to death. The lame old man cursed viciously. My docility pleased him. And he pushed me into that dark little room. He didn't search me. As soon as I entered the room, I ran to the wall and softly called out through the only crack, Lily. After a while, there was the sound of chains. You know me? Her voice was still so pleasant. And full of strength. I wanted to keep her alive. Rather than let her die in a few days. I know your brother. He's on his way here. There was another sound of chains rattling. Lily was very excited. Really? You really know my brother? I wasn't lying to her. I knew him in my previous life. Listen to me. No matter what happens, stay calm. They will beat people to death. You have to stay alive to see your brother. Lily was a very stubborn girl. She would rather die than be humiliated. After a long time, she let out a hen. We were like goods, and would be starved for a few days first. Then several families in the village would celebrate together that they had a woman in the house. I still had a little time. But Lily was too beautiful. Her beauty was like that of someone facing the sun. She had a dimple on one side when she smiled. It was very easy for people to covet her. At night, I heard some movement in the next room. The sound of the door opening. The heavy panting of a man. Lily's screams. My brother is coming soon. He won't let you guys off. You beasts. 19. Lily's loud screams didn't attract anyone's attention. Even the other neighbors didn't move to take a look. Here. To deal with those who were disobedient. They just needed to beat them until they were obedient. This kind of sound was very common in this village. 20. Lily threw away the stone in her hand and looked at the man lying on the ground. And me. Holding a knife. The knife in my hand was shaking continuously. And blood was still dripping from the knife. The man on the ground twitched twice and then stopped moving. Lily was very smart. When she saw me enter the room, she suddenly let out a loud scream. It was a very miserable scream. The man who was trying to do something bad to her was also frightened. I walked behind that man, raised the knife in my hand, and stabbed it down hard. 21. Sister. What should we do? Lily was very brave. So in my previous life, she would rather die than yield to this man. After being beaten to death, she was chopped into pieces by this man and thrown into the pigsty to feed the pigs. He probably isn't dead yet. I took a deep breath. I wiped the knife and put it back in the leather sheath on my belly. He has the keys on him. Open your chains first. I listened to the movement outside the door. This man only had an old mother. and she was sound asleep now. Throw him into the pigsty. I was worried that the man was just knocked unconscious and wanted to give him a few more blows. Lily suddenly picked up the stone on the ground and smashed it on the man's head several times. After she threw away the stone, her face was covered with tears. We threw the man into the pigsty. We went to the kitchen of this house and stole a few dry cakes. And then went back to the dark room where I was locked up. 22 When Lily saw that I was very familiar with taking the door off and putting it back on, she finally understood how I could leave this room. I let her lie on the hay and take a nap, and I blocked her with dry firewood. As soon as it dawned, there was a howl from the neighbor's side. It was the man's mother who finally woke up. In the pigsty, Halle fulfilled Wyant Sasher. She saw the man who had been gnawed to pieces by the pigs. My son. My son. That bitch ran away alone in the middle of the night. She can't have gone far. Let's hurry up and chase after her. All the men in the village went to chase after her. The man of this family was the same. When he saw me sitting on the ground obediently, he ignored me. During that time, his mother also came and threw down a bowl of water. I looked up and stared at her. You were also abducted here. Why are you helping them? The old woman, who was already 70 years old, curled her lips and smiled. Her dry face made the wrinkles seem to hang on it. They all deserve to die. When I was rescued in my previous life, she was already 80 years old and still alive. 23 Lily and I each drank half a bowl of water and ate a dry cake. We also left 2 cakes, which were enough for us to leave here alive. The men in the village searched for a whole day but didn't find the slightest trace of Lily. A woman said, "Could it be that she didn't run away and is hiding in someone's house? Go back to your respective homes and check." When the lame man came back, I smelled the aroma of meat. I knew that he was going to enjoy his commodity meat. My docility made him in a very good mood, and he stewed the meat as soon as he came back. "You stinky woman. You're in luck." The lame man put half a bowl of meat on the ground. He wanted to watch me finish eating it. There was medicine in it. 24 I took the bowl of meat and immediately smelled a foul and pungent odor. I had eaten this kind of meat several times a year in my previous life. At that time, it was a rare delicacy for me. Now, just smelling this smell made me want to vomit. I'm a vegetarian. I threw the bowl of meat on the ground. And a piece of meat even bounced out of the bowl and fell on the ground. The lame man's eyes blazed with anger, and his face contorted. Just as he raised his hand to hit me, his mother called out from outside the door. Oh, isn't that Ogwe still in the pigsty? It stinks to high heaven. Stinks to high heaven. The lame man went out and took the half bowl of meat with him. He fed it to the pigs. The lame man and several men in the village cleaned up the pigsty. The pigs that ate the drugged meat grunted all night. Dawn came. A little bit of light seeped into the crack of the door. I helped Lily walk around in the small dark room. Suddenly, the door was open from the outside. The lame man was standing outside the door. Good. You stinky woman were hiding here. 25 The lame man was going to find the other people in the village. When he turned around, Lily suddenly rushed up and strangled his neck with her coat. I picked up a thick piece of firewood from the ground and hit the lame man on the head. 1 blow. 2 blows. 3 blows. I didn't know how many times I had hit him. In those 10 hopeless years of my previous life, this man had whipped me like this. The sole of a shoe. A leather belt. A stick. When I was tired from hitting, he lay on the ground without moving at all. Whimper. I covered my mouth and sobbed in a low voice. I didn't dare to make any more noise. I hid the man in the firewood stack and locked the door from the outside. After I put the door back in place, I just waited for it to get dark. When Lily and I ate the last pieces of dry cake, we walked out of the door hand in hand. Outside the door, it was pitch black. A figure suddenly blocked our way. Where are you going? Where's my son? You damned things. It was the lame man's mother, who had been abducted 2 decades ago. In the end, she became one of them. I slapped her hard twice. You're the one who deserves to die the most. I tied her to the well. I set a fire in that small dark room where I had been locked up before. When the flames burned out and reached the man's body, I turned around and left. Lily held my hand tightly. When we reached the entrance of the village, Heartburn cries came from behind us. There's a fire. Put out the fire. There's a fire. This village was still very old-fashioned. And most of the houses were built with wood, mud, and straw mixed in the mud. It caught fire very easily. We walked for a while longer. The whole village was already engulfed in a sea of fire. None of the people here were innocent. Brother! Lily suddenly ran towards a person. Ryan actually came. He also brought the police. 26. It turned out that Ryan didn't ignore me. Instead, he went to find the police. This village and several nearby villages had already been under the police's surveillance. They first went to the neighboring village to collect evidence and then rushed over. Lily cried and nestled in Ryan's arms. Presumably, she told Ryan all that had happened. Ryan didn't ask me why I knew the license plate number of that driver. Instead, he held out his hand to me. Give me the thing. I'll take care of it. I handed him the knife that was tucked in my waist. He then shook hands with me formally. Leon. Ella. I'm Ella. I have no father. No mother. No brothers or sisters. I was raised by this warm land. That's why I can have a tough heart. And I can bravely create my own life. 27. I left all the subsequent matters to the police. That village had been burned to pieces. Everyone was arrested. Unfortunately, that driver ran away in advance. But I left something in his car. And he would definitely see it. I asked Ryan to drop me off at the door of Teacher Amanda's house. From a distance, Teacher Amanda ran towards me. I had just contacted her. And she also learned from the police about what had happened to me. The police asked her about my family situation. To determine the likelihood that my parents would sell their own daughter. Oh, you child. Why didn't you tell me anything? Teacher Amanda draped a coat over me, and cried even harder than I did. Such a big thing. You. Teacher Amanda wiped away her tears. Then she saw Ian and Lily standing not far away. Lily. It's Lily. It turned out that Teacher Amanda was Ryan's aunt. Teacher Amanda hugged Lily and cried again. 28. She's called Ella now. When she goes to school in the capital city in the future, please take care of her for me. Teacher Amanda said this to Ryan. The Zoo family was from the capital city. Moreover, they were now staying at Teacher Amanda's house, waiting for Lily's parents. They insisted on coming to pick Lily up in person. The love that Lily's family had for her moved me. However, the fact that I was able to come back was already the greatest gift from heaven to me. I'm very satisfied now. It was Teacher Anana who patted my back that I gradually fell asleep at night. This was the most peaceful sleep I had had since I came back from 10 years later. Ever since I knew I had been reborn. Everything was like being caught in a nightmare. And now, this dream had finally woken up. I also want to hold my head high and take the first step forward. All your formalities have been completed. In addition to the 20 yuan in your card, the school has rewarded you with another 100 yuan. And I added 30 yuan for you. Study hard and don't have any financial burden in your life. I shed tears silently. I had a new identity. I have no parents. And my name is Ella. When I was on the train to the capital city, I finally received a call from Vivian. She and Leo had both been arrested. 20. Now you ungrateful thing. What exactly did you tell the police? We're your biological parents. How could we possibly traffic you? Vivian wanted me to make it clear to the police that I wasn't trafficked, but that I had voluntarily married that lame man. I had been waiting for this call for a long time. That's why I didn't change the phone card. I was waiting for this news. I lay on the small table of the train and cried for a long time. It seemed that Vivian's abusive words could no longer hurt me. Bitch. When I get out, I'll see if I don't kill you. 30. I was a week late for school registration. Teacher Amanda and the police had both contacted the school. Only then did the school leaders know that my elder sister had gone to school pretending to be me. When Emma was expelled from the university, she said the same thing as Vivian. Abba, you son of a bitch. You won't die a good death. I'm called Ella now. Later, the verdicts for Vivian and Leo came down. Their circumstances were relatively serious. Vivian was sentenced to life imprisonment. Leo was sentenced to 10 years in prison. But Emma disappeared. Later, I saw her on TV. She was wearing a long coat, barefoot. Her hair was messy and looked like a pile of grass. She looked at everyone around her in horror and wouldn't let anyone get close. This was Emma 10 years later. Back then, I accidentally dropped her ID card in that truck. That truck driver, unwilling to be caught, after seeing Emma's ID card, he found a way to locate her and sold her into a mountain valley. Emma was forced to marry a widower in his 60s. She had been locked up in a dark room for 10 years. 31, Mom. She's so pitiful. My daughter wanted to donate money to her. I stroked her head. Okay. But don't let the other side know who you are. Mom. I know. I not only want to learn a lot of things, but also know how to protect myself. My daughter nestled into my arms obediently. I love Mom the most. Having a second chance made me truly understand one thing. The one who can really save oneself is only oneself. Be independent. Move forward bravely. Take control of one's own life. I had many choices in my life, all decided by myself. 32 extra story. The first thing Leo did after he was released from prison was to divorce Vivian. During these 10 years in prison, he understood one thing. When choosing a wife, one should choose a virtuous one. The reason he was in such a bad situation now was all because of this woman, Vivian. The position of factory director that he had always been proud of was also gone. After he got out of prison, he couldn't find a job for a long time. Finally, heading fulfilled Mayadshai. He found a job as a waiter in a small restaurant. 2 months after his release from prison, the police contacted him. They told him that his daughter had been found. When Leo saw Emma, he didn't recognize her at all. How could this somewhat crazy woman be his most beloved child? No. She's not Emma. She must be Ava, the unfilial daughter. Let me see if I don't beat her to death. The police stopped him. They told him repeatedly that this crazy woman was Emma. Because Emma had been sold into a mountain valley by that driver who was taking revenge. It was only recently that she had been rescued by the police. The Ava in Leo's mouth had changed her name 10 years ago, and had long since severed ties with them. China is so big that it's impossible to find a real Ava at all. Emma was taken back by Leo. Leo now lived in a very small room with only one bed. He slept on the bed, and Emma habitually curled up in the corner. She always looked at him with a wary gaze. The reason Leo took Emma back was that the government gave a sum of compensation. Even the local neighborhood tried to find ways to help Emma. Just 2 days later, Leo couldn't stand it anymore. In the past 10 years, Emma had been eating, drinking, and relieving herself in the same room. She was used to it. When I opened my eyes again, I went back to the day when my mother was helping me pack my luggage. No, that didn't fulfill my obsession. This is too much. Leo was going crazy. He only lasted for 2 days. Then he kicked Emma out of the door. Fortunately, heading fulfilledly, it was summer. After wandering outside for a few days, Emma was taken in by the local relief station. I was on a business trip. I returned to this city. That's how I learned the news about Emma and Leo. However, they have nothing to do with me anymore.